The morning sun slid through the kitchen blinds, striping the floor in pale gold. Maggie Walker poured herself a cup of coffee, the smell of roasted beans filling the quiet house. Her phone sat on the counter, the screen glowing with her son's name, Ethan. She smiled softly, the kind of smile only a mother gives when she's thinking about her child's happiness. Today, she was going to ask when the wedding was finally happening. She had been saving for months, $500 here, $200 there, making sure everything would be perfect for him and Harper, the girl she had come to think of as her own daughter. When Ethan picked up, he sounded distracted. "Hey, Mom, can I call you back later?" Before Maggie could respond, Harper's voice floated through the receiver, smooth as silk and sharp as glass. "Oh, Maggie, you don't have to worry about that anymore," she said, almost sweetly. "We already got married yesterday. It was just for special people." The words struck like a physical blow. Maggie froze. The coffee cup trembled in her hand, spilling dark liquid across the counter. Special people. Her ears rang. For 3 years, she had paid their rent, furnished their apartment, filled their refrigerator when they had nothing to eat. And yet, she wasn't special. She wasn't even invited. When the call ended, she stood there for a long moment, the quiet buzzing louder than any scream. Later, scrolling through social media, she found the proof. Harper, in a white lace gown Maggie had helped pay for, her parents standing proudly beside her, Ethan smiling in the center, champagne flutes raised. There it was, the family portrait she had financed, but was never meant to appear in. In the closet hung the pale pink dress she'd bought for the wedding, still wrapped in plastic. Next to it sat the silver heels she'd splurged on for the photos she would never take. On her dresser was the envelope containing $1,000 she had planned to give them as a wedding gift. Every piece of her love sat there, untouched, unwanted. That night, Maggie lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan, turning above her bed. She thought of all the times she had said no to herself so she could say yes to them, canceling lunches with friends, skipping vacations, eating cheap meals to afford their comfort. Had they ever once said thank you? The question stung more than the betrayal itself. A week later, her phone rang again. Harper's voice this time wasn't smooth. It was brittle. "Maggie, the rent's overdue. The landlord says we'll be evicted if we don't pay this week. You must have forgotten to send the transfer." Maggie looked out the window at the fading sunset. Her voice came out calm, almost gentle. "No, Harper, I didn't forget. But you did." "Forgot what?" Harper asked, confused. "That I only help special people." There was a long, dead silence before the line clicked. Maggie placed the phone down and exhaled deeply. For the first time in years, she didn't feel guilt. She felt power. The next morning, she drove to the bank, her hand steady on the steering wheel. Mr. Jenkins, the gray-haired branch manager who'd known her for decades, looked surprised when she asked to cancel the automatic transfers to Ethan's account. "Are you sure, Mrs. Walker?" he asked softly. "You've been sending that money like clockwork." "I'm sure," she said, signing her name with deliberate strokes. "It's time my money belongs to me again." Walking out of the bank, the automare felt lighter, sharper. The wind tousled her hair as she passed the park where she used to push Ethan on the swings. She paused, remembering the little boy who once called her the best mom in the world. Somewhere along the way, that boy had turned into a man who treated her like an ATM with feelings. When she returned home, 3 cars were parked in her driveway. The lights inside her house were on. Her pulse quickened. She pushed open the door to find Ethan, Harper, and a man in a gray suit sitting at her dining table. Her personal papers scattered everywhere. "What's going on?" she demanded. The man stood and extended a hand with a professional smile. "Mrs. Walker, I'm Dr. Fisher, a family attorney. Your children are concerned about your mental well-being. They've asked me to help you manage your affairs." Maggie didn't take his hand. She simply looked at Ethan, her son, standing beside Harper, avoiding her gaze. For the first time in her life, she felt something break, and something stronger rise to replace it. The air in Maggie's living room felt heavy, as if every lie they had ever told was hanging in it. Harper stood by the window, her arms crossed, a look of false concern on her face. Ethan avoided his mother's eyes, pretending to examine the floor. And the man in the gray suit, Dr. Fisher, laid a neat stack of documents on the table she had bought for them years ago. "Maggie," Harper began, in that syrupy tone she used whenever she wanted something, "we just want to help you. You've been forgetful lately. These papers will make things easier. We can manage the bills, the transfers, everything, so you don't have to stress." Stress? Maggie's voice was soft, but there was a steel thread running through it. "The only thing that's ever stressed me is how much I've had to clean up after you two." Ethan stepped forward, his voice rising. "Mom, you're not making sense. You cut off the rent money with no explanation. You don't answer our calls. Harper's worried about you." Maggie turned her gaze on him, calm, unwavering. "Worried about me? Or about the money?" Dr. Fisher slid the papers toward her. "It's just a temporary power of attorney, Mrs. Walker. Standard procedure for families in transition. Sign here, and everything will be under control." Without even looking, Maggie picked up the stack and dropped it straight into the trash bin beside the table. "The only thing under control," she said quietly, "is my patience. And it's running out." Harper's polite mask cracked. "You can't do this to us. Everything you have will be ours one day anyway." And there it was, the naked truth. No pretense, no affection, just greed. Maggie didn't yell. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than rage. "Not today," she said, and walked out of the room, leaving them staring. That night she called Daniel Cole, her late husband's old attorney. His voice was steady, warm, exactly what she needed. After listening to everything, he said, "Maggie, what they're doing fits the textbook definition of elder financial abuse. You need to take back control, officially." "Tell me how," she said simply. By the next morning, she was executing his plan step by step. First, she went to the bank and met with Mr. Jenkins again to lock every account, remove all shared access, and ensure no one could withdraw a cent without her signature. Jenkins looked at her with quiet admiration. "About time, Mrs. Walker," he said. Then came the practical defense. At the hardware store, she met Jake Turner, a young technician with kind eyes. "I need new locks," Maggie told him, "and the best security cameras you've got." Jake grinned. "Planning to keep someone out?" "Exactly." Within hours, her front door had a new deadbolt. Her house, new eyes in every corner. When the installation was done, she watched the live feed from her phone. A small miracle of modern independence. That evening, her neighbor Eleanor Brooks appeared at the fence, holding a cup of cocoa. "Heard some noise at your place last night. You okay, honey?" Maggie invited her in. Over coffee, she told Eleanor everything: the secret wedding, the betrayal, the invasion. Eleanor listened quietly, then said, "I went through the same thing with my daughter. Thought love meant paying her bills. Turns out, it just meant buying silence. Cutting them off didn't kill the love, Maggie. It killed the illusion." Those words stuck in Maggie's chest like a key turning in a long locked door. The next day, she drove to her favorite salon for the first time in over a year. "Well, look who decided to come back," her stylist, Cynthia, teased. Maggie laughed for real this time. "I finally remembered I deserved to feel good." When Cynthia was done, Maggie barely recognized the reflection in the mirror. Her eyes brighter, her shoulders straighter. Later that week, she called her sister Diane in Chicago. The conversation was short but piercing. "Ethan never talked about you with love," Diane admitted. "It was always, 'Mom paid for this, Mom bought that.' Not once did he say he missed you." Maggie's heart hurt, but in a clean, final way, like a wound being washed. 2 days later, the confrontation escalated. She came home to find Ethan and Harper back on her porch, with Dr. Fisher again. But this time, police cruisers were already there, summoned by Daniel and the restraining order he'd filed that morning. Ethan shouted, "You'll regret this, Mom. You'll end up alone." Maggie looked him in the eye, her voice low but unwavering. "I've been alone for years, Ethan. The only difference now is, it's by choice." The officers escorted them off the property. Maggie closed the door slowly and locked it with a deliberate click. The sound echoed through the quiet house like a declaration of war and freedom. The knock came early on a gray Tuesday morning. 3 sharp raps that echoed through the quiet house. Maggie wiped her hands on a dish towel and opened the door to find a woman in a navy blazer, holding a clipboard and wearing an official badge. "Good morning, Mrs. Walker," the woman asked in a firm, polite tone. "I'm Lauren Price from the Department of Senior Services. We received a report that you may be in an at-risk situation. I'm here to conduct a wellness check." For a moment, Maggie thought she'd misheard. "An at-risk situation," she repeated. Lauren smiled, the kind of professional smile that never reached her eyes. "Yes, ma'am. Your family is concerned about some recent behavior, financial changes, isolation, installing unnecessary security systems, refusing medical advice." Maggie's stomach turned cold. It was them, Ethan and Harper. They were trying a new tactic. She forced herself to breathe evenly. "May I see your ID?" Lauren showed it without hesitation. It was legitimate. Maggie stepped aside but didn't let her guard down. "You can come in, but I'll be calling my attorney before answering any questions." Lauren hesitated. "Mrs. Walker, this isn't an interrogation. If you have nothing to hide—" "That's what people say right before they try to trap you," Maggie interrupted, her voice steady. "You can wait here." She dialed Daniel Cole, who arrived 20 minutes later, his expression already tight with anger. "Miss Price," he said, checking her credentials, "my client is under legal representation. Unless you have a court order, this interview ends now." Lauren cleared her throat. "We have reports from concerned family members." Daniel cut her off. "You mean the same family that broke into her home, demanded control of her finances, and tried to have her declared incompetent? Those family members—" Lauren's pen paused mid-air. Daniel opened his briefcase and spread out a stack of documents across the table. Receipts, transfer records, photographs, dates, police reports. $33,400 drained over 3 years. Emotional coercion, forced dependence. Does that sound like a woman who needs protection or a victim of financial abuse? Lauren's confidence faltered. I see." Maggie looked her straight in the eye. "I'm fine, Miss Price. But thank you for confirming how far they're willing to go." After the social worker left, Maggie felt both exhausted and strangely vindicated. The battle had moved beyond money. It was now about her sanity, her reputation, her mind. 2 days later, Daniel arrived with grim news. "They've filed an official petition for guardianship. Ethan and Harper are claiming you're mentally unfit to manage your affairs." Maggie's hands trembled slightly. "On what grounds?" "They've fabricated statements," Daniel said. "A neighbor, a pharmacist, and Harper herself are listed as witnesses." Maggie closed her eyes. She already knew who the neighbor was. Mr. Davis, the man who always glared at her for parking too close to his driveway. And the pharmacist must be Mr. Green, a kind man she'd known for years. They went to the pharmacy first. Mr. Green looked mortified when he saw her. "Mrs. Walker, I swear, I didn't mean any harm. Harper came in saying she needed verification for your insurance. I signed a form she handed me. I thought it was routine." "What did it say?" Maggie asked quietly. "That you had irregular medication habits," he admitted. "But you don't even take prescriptions." "Then you'll write a statement clarifying that," Daniel said firmly. Mr. Green nodded immediately. Next, they visited Mr. Davis. He didn't even open the door all the way. "That woman's crazy," he said loudly. "Installed cameras everywhere, yells at people, has strangers coming and going." "Strangers?" Maggie snapped. "Those are my friends." "And the cameras?" "To protect me from my son who broke into my house." Mr. Davis sneered. "Sounds like paranoia to me." Daniel placed a note on his mailbox. "You'll get your chance to repeat that under oath," he said coolly, and walked away. That evening, Maggie sat at her dining table surrounded by folders, dates, and evidence. Her entire life organized into a defense. Daniel was right. If they were going to attack her mind, she would fight back with facts. He brought in Dr. Moore, a cognitive specialist, to conduct a full mental evaluation. The session lasted over 2 hours. Logic puzzles, memory tests, financial questions. At the end, Dr. Moore smiled warmly. "Mrs. Walker, your cognitive function is excellent. Frankly, sharper than most people 20 years younger." When Daniel heard the results, he exhaled. "That's our shield." But for Maggie, it was more than that. It was validation. The final proof that she wasn't crazy, that she had never been. Later that week, Eleanor invited her over to meet a few friends, women who had all faced the same kind of betrayal. Over steaming cups of tea, they shared stories of daughters, sons, nieces who had turned greed into inheritance plans. Eleanor placed a gentle hand on Maggie's arm. "You're not alone in this fight. And you're not the one who's sick, dear. They are. Sick with greed." For the first time in weeks, Maggie smiled. The war wasn't over, but now she had an army. Her lawyer, her doctor, her friends, and, finally, herself. The morning of the hearing dawned gray and cold, as if the sky itself held its breath. Maggie Walker stood before her mirror, buttoning her black suit jacket with deliberate calm. Every motion felt like armor being fitted. She wasn't just preparing for a trial. She was preparing to defend her dignity, her sanity, and her right to live free. Outside the courthouse, the wind whipped through the parking lot. Daniel Cole met her at the steps, briefcase in hand, his face carved with focus. "Remember," he told her, "the burden of proof is on them. We just have to show the truth." Inside, the courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Ethan sat at the plaintiff's table, polished and expressionless in a new suit. Harper wore black, her expression a carefully crafted blend of pity and righteousness. Beside them sat their attorney, an older man whose calm voice soon filled the room. "Your Honor," he began, "this is not about greed. This is about love and concern. My clients fear that their mother, Mrs. Walker, is no longer capable of making rational decisions. She's isolated, paranoid, and being manipulated by outsiders." Every sentence was a dagger cloaked in honey. When it was time for their witnesses, Harper went first. Tears shimmered as she spoke. "Maggie's been like a second mother to me. But lately, she's changed. She cut us off for no reason, installed cameras everywhere, accused us of things we never did." Daniel's cross-examination sliced through her act. "Mrs. Scott, when was the last time you called my client without asking for money?" Harper blinked, stammering, I can't remember the exact date." "And when your mother-in-law asked about your wedding, what did you say to her?" Harper's cheeks flushed crimson. "That's taken out of context." "Oh?" Daniel's voice stayed calm, but deadly. "Then what context makes only special people sound kind?" A ripple of whispers spread through the room. Next came Ethan. His voice shook as he testified. "Mom has always been generous, but now she's being irrational. We're afraid she's being used by people trying to get to her money." When Daniel questioned him, Ethan's facade began to crumble. "Mr. Walker," Daniel said evenly, "is it true that your mother has paid over $33,000 in expenses for you and your wife in the last 3 years?" Ethan shifted in his chair. I guess, maybe. "Is it also true that you and Mrs. Scott broke into her home with a lawyer to pressure her into signing a power of attorney? We were just concerned. And do you, a 35-year-old man, still depend on your 71-year-old mother to pay your rent? Silence. Only the faint hum of the air conditioner filled the void. When the defense presented their case, Daniel called a line of witnesses. Mr. Green, the pharmacist, who explained he'd been misled into signing a false statement. Dr. Moore, the cognitive specialist, who testified that Maggie's mental performance was well above average. Eleanor Brooks and her friends spoke of Maggie's clarity, independence, and newfound peace. Even Mr. Jenkins, the bank manager, confirmed that Maggie's financial decisions were logical, precise, and completely her own. Finally, it was Maggie's turn. She rose, walking to the stand with quiet confidence. Daniel's voice softened. "Mrs. Walker, why did you stop financially supporting your son and daughter-in-law?" She looked directly at the judge. "Because I finally realized I was financing their comfort at the cost of my self-respect. I thought I was buying love. But love that has a price tag isn't love. It's business. And I'm done being their business." Her words hung in the air like church bells after a storm. The opposing lawyer tried to rattle her, asking if she'd been influenced by her neighbor or her attorney. Maggie smiled faintly. "I've been influenced by pain, sir. Pain is the best teacher there is." When the closing statements ended, Judge Miller retreated to his chambers. 2 hours passed, like 2 lifetimes. Maggie sat still, hands clasped, her pulse a drumbeat beneath the silence. Finally, the judge returned. His voice was calm but firm. "After reviewing all evidence, this court finds that Mrs. Maggie Walker is fully competent to manage her affairs. The petition for guardianship is denied. Furthermore, this case reveals an attempt at financial exploitation by the plaintiffs." Gasps filled the room. Ethan's face went pale. Harper looked as if someone had slapped her. Maggie exhaled slowly. It wasn't just victory. It was liberation. That evening, friends gathered at her house. Laughter filled rooms that had once echoed with tension. Eleanor raised her glass. To Maggie, who didn't just win a case, she won herself back. 3 months later, Maggie sold her suburban home and moved into a sunny apartment downtown. She donated half her savings to charities protecting the elderly, and with the rest, she traveled, painted, and lived, truly lived, for the first time in decades. Sometimes, standing on her balcony at night, she'd lift her tea toward the stars and whisper to no one in particular, "True love has no price, and freedom, no matter how costly, is worth every cent." And with that, the woman who was once an ATM with feelings became something far rarer, a soul finally free.